Morning, and to say a very good morning to Executive Director of Freedom of Religion South Africa, Michael Swain. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jonathan, and thank you so much for having me on the show.
You're so welcome. So, Michael, on the 22nd of June, the Health Minister repealed Regulations 16A through 16C of the Health Regulations Amendment for 2022, relating to indoor mask wearing, restrictions on gatherings and travel requirements, which has been fantastic. It's so wonderful to be able to go to church, sing without a mask on, and give people hugs again and so forth. But comments on the draft health regulations remain open and will give the government the same sweeping powers to control every aspect of life and society that they have exercised during the state of national disaster. So that's why we're chatting to Michael Swain from Freedom of Religion South Africa. Michael, there is much celebration, of course, going on with regard to the end of mask wearing as a mandate. But what is the view of 4SA?
Well, we're obviously very glad, like everybody else, to not have to wear masks all the time, etc. But I think we have to be careful that we don't celebrate early. This is a little bit like when we've had a big storm in the Western Cape, and then we suddenly get, like we have done these past few days, beautiful, clear weather. But there could be another storm coming, and there may well be. And that's the kind of situation that we're in, because what happened is that the minister repealed Regulations 16A through C. These were effectively part of the regulations that were gazetted for comment, which is due, by the way, still on the 5th of August, that he basically put into action early and has now withdrawn. So here's the reality of it. The regulations were part of what is actually still under consideration, and therefore assuming that it is not withdrawn completely. In other words, if he doesn't simply say, we're going to close down the comments on those regulations, we're not going to follow through anymore, then we could literally be back in exactly the same position at any time. Because what these regulations effectively do, and they were designed to do, was to sort of take over in like a seamless handshake from the regulations that we were under during the COVID-19 pandemic. And what the minister has done is he has listed COVID-19 as a notifiable medical condition under the Health Act. And what that means is that he can pass regulations, and these are the ones that are out for comment, based upon the fact that that is still a notifiable medical condition. In fact, it's category 2, which is alongside typhoid and hepatitis and tuberculosis, for example. And therefore, he can simply bring back at any stage any of these regulations. In fact, it's not just the regulations that he's repealed that are concerning, but there are a whole bunch of other regulations as well that are even more concerning, that are still, if you like, on the table.
Sure. So talk to us about those specific concerns, because, I mean, our right to religious engagement and so forth has been restored. But of course, these draft health regulations have an potential impact on that in the future. So what are those specifics?
Well, specifically, what could potentially happen under the draft health regulations is exactly what we experienced under the worst of lockdown. It could literally be a regulation that would keep you in your home, for example. It would prevent you from buying certain goods in the shops that we remember. It could stop you going to the beach. And if you do, like happened in Muizenberg, and your toddler runs onto the beach, you could be arrested and potentially put in jail for up to 6 months or fined. I mean, these are the regulations that are all potentially coming into force once these draft health regulations comment period is over. And they may not be exercised, but the fact is that once they are basically gazetted and promulgated, they could be at any time. And unlike, by the way, the regulations passed under the Disaster Management Act, these regulations are permanent and they continue indefinitely. They don't have to be changed. This is not a bill where new legislations or existing parliament can oversee it. These have already, if you like, been given to the minister as a power under the Health Act, which is why we believe the Health Act needs to be amended. And literally, I mean, to give you an example, regulations 15A and B impose mandatory medical examination, hospitalization, mandatory quarantine, isolation, mandatory treatment, even if you've just been exposed to somebody with a notifiable medical condition. That would be COVID-19, even though obviously it's a lot weaker than it was when it first came out. And treatment is again undefined. It could be a mandatory vaccination. It could be compulsory quarantine. And again, if you don't comply, failure under these current regulations includes an unspecified fine or jail for up to 10 years. So don't think that just because the masks have gone away temporarily that we're out of the woods and we can do a victory lap. Unless and until COVID-19 is removed as a notifiable medical condition, and these draft health regulations, which were passed because of COVID-19, effectively have been taken off the table, only then can we relax. And that's why it's so important that we keep pressing in and keep pushing government to allow us to continue back to normal.
Yeah, no, that is so important. So, Michael, as we wrap things up, what do we as individuals need to do to support 4SA in this specific aspect?
Well, specifically, the one thing that everybody can and we believe please should do is to comment and to object to the fact that these regulations continue to be on the table. And you can do that by going to our forsa.org.za website, and you'll see a link right on the top in the banner. You click on that and you go through to the Dear SA platform that we use to in order to basically ensure that comments do reach the Minister of Health and object to this. We don't need these regulations. COVID-19, which obviously was once a very severe health crisis, is no longer a severe health crisis, and therefore why is government still trying to put out regulations that would allow them to literally micromanage our lives? There is no further justification, and we say that it should be scrapped, it should be taken off the table, and we should be allowed to go back simply to normal. That's the bottom line. We don't want to be in a situation again where our religious gatherings can be shut down while casinos remain open, and all the sorts of things that went on under the previous regulations under the COVID lockdown. So let's get engaged as society, as civilians, and let's make our voices heard. The more voices that we raise, the louder our voices become, and the more government has to pay attention.
Thank you so much, Michael Swain. Michael Swain is the Executive Director of Freedom of Religion South Africa. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate you chatting to us this morning.
Thank you, Jonathan. Great to be with you.
There we go.